Welcome back for the ultimate episode of Inside the 605. Jason Andera alongside Ryan Deal. And Ryan, these teams have worked hard all season. Last week, the girls, we crowned some champions. This week, we're ready to crown some boys champions. We've got a lot to talk about this week, don't we?
Absolutely. Right in the thick of best time of the year, my favorite time of the year. A lot of people's favorite time of the year. So we got one more busy week of basketball, and the girls' basketball tournaments were fun last week. So the boys gotta keep it going, I guess.
Yeah, so we've got three tournaments to preview for the boys, but just let's quickly touch on the girls' tournaments. Outstanding games in all three classes, up and down, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We had some great moments every day. And you were at the Bees and you got to see some really interesting stuff, but it was just fun keeping up with the girls' state tournament last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And championship night always, I think, lives up to the hype. And this year, especially in Double A and A, just some great games, some fantastic finishes. One finish that people are certainly talking about, and people probably know what I'm referring to. So people can read our story on 605sports.com if they want to read the kind of the wild finish in the Sioux Falls Christian Machpia Luta championship game. Just real quick in Class B girls, Bennett County, a team we kind of talked about being on the rise, and boy, they surely introduced themselves to the rest of the state with a state championship and a young team. So it's going to be fun to watch the Warriors the next few seasons.
For sure. And let's hope that we have half as much excitement in the boys' state tournaments. Let's dig in. Let's start with Class B. And in Class B, there's been a little bit of indecision on who the top team in Class B is all season long. Castlewood, Viborg, Hurley, and then St. Mary's comes in actually with the best record in Class B. Just your overall thoughts on some of these teams in the B tournament.
Yeah, I certainly think in Class B boys, you mentioned those top three teams. I think definitely think those are the teams, going in that you kind of have to circle or kind of pinpoint as obviously the teams that maybe kind of separate themselves a little bit from the pack. But I'm a big believer in a lot. You got to still go out and play and win some games and whatnot. And in this field, there's some teams that probably have some potential to pull off an upset here and there. So certainly those are the three teams that everybody's going to talk about going in, but that doesn't mean anything. I think there's some teams kind of laying in the weeds, so to say, that I think whenever we tip the ball up on Thursday, we'll probably surprise some people.
Well, the girls' tournament in Class B especially, we had a lot of numerical upsets, and a team familiar with upsets, Lyman, works their way into the state conversation by taking out Gregory on the way. They face Castlewood, who comes in as the number one seed in Class B. Let's just talk about this game. Castlewood has had an excellent defense all season long. Lyman comes in with some offensive firepower.
Yeah, this will be a good one, a fun one to tip off right off the bat. You have the ultimate, underdog against one of the top seeds, the number one seed, going into the state tournament. Castlewood, fourth year in a row playing in the state tournament. Lyman, it's been a few years since they made it there, and the term you always hear is they're a year ahead of schedule, and I think Lyman's certainly a team that's a year ahead of schedule. One senior, just got a lot of young players coming up. But here they are playing, the first game to open the state tournament against Castlewood, who's obviously number one, a favorite, all those sorts of things. So this will be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, they've got some big guys in their lineup, Lyman does, and nobody quite like Brian Lowy, though. This guy is probably one of the best players we've seen at the Class B level in a long time, averaging 16 and a half points a game, 12.3 rebounds per game. He's definitely a difference maker. He's not all Castlewood has to offer, but he's definitely a guy we got to talk about.
Yeah, in Class B basketball, if you got a 6'8", 6'9" kid that can do the things that Brian Lowy can do, you're going to be set up for success. And obviously, he's got some good pieces around him. Some nice guards and everything. This will be interesting because I think Lyman has enough size where I think
He got some 6'4s, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they got enough size where they can bother him just enough. But at the end of the day, he's still just a load down low. So this is going to be a tough task for Lyman in this one.
Talked to both coaches, and they said the keys to this game, both of them talked about rebounding. They're going to need to find a way to, just get that part of the game done. and playing through a lot of emotion. And, Lyman making it this far, it's going to be huge for that young group. And then Castlewood, just do the things that they've done all season long. And all season long, they've been very good at 21-2. So this could be a really fun game. Coming up as the second game on the B slate, we've got Wall and Wessington Springs. And this Wall team is interesting. Another team that's offensively charged. Emmett Dinger, if you haven't heard of him, is the 20-point scorer for Wall, who really gets things done. What do you think about this matchup?
This will be another intriguing one. I think Wessington Springs has a little bit more size than Wall does, but Wall, certainly has the guard play, and I think enough size where they can certainly compete with Wessington Springs kind of in that department and everything. But yeah, like you said, Wall likes to get up and down. I certainly think Wessington Springs is capable of playing a high scoring kind of a game. So this will certainly be a fun one. And Wall, first time making the state tournament since like 2001. So it's always fun when we have those kind of stories about a community first time getting to experience this one in a long time.
For Wessington Springs, Colby Flowers has really stepped up this season. He's averaging nearly a double-double. Parker Graff, who has been an all-state type of player for them for now for the last couple of years, they've definitely got some weapons, but they're going to have to D up because this Wall team is charged offensively. And their Wall's head coach, Ryan Kierstead, he knows that they're going to have to really rebound the basketball well against a team that has a lot of big guys on the inside. So that's what I'm looking forward to in this game. Anything else to add to it?
Yeah, and another quick thing, Parker Graff, Weston Springs, like you mentioned, he did not play in their SODAC game
Right.
due to a knee injury. I'm uncertain of his status going into the state tournament, but my personal opinion is I don't know if I don't think he'll play in the state tournament, and then that would certainly be a bummer for Westington Springs, not to see a player of his caliber get to play and experience a state tournament again. So that'll certainly throw kind of a wrinkle into this one.
Good stuff, Ryan. The third game of the day, we've got St. Mary's taking on Aberdeen Christian. And you talk about teams kind of making it a year early. I think Aberdeen Christian might fall into that category as well with some really good young talent. But this St. Mary's team, nobody's been able to score the basketball quite like they have. They've got two of the top scorers of all the individuals. They're the top scoring team. They're really good shooting from the three-point line. They've lost just one game as they took on Castlewood and couldn't get that win. But other than that, they've been really good this season.
Yeah, this will be another intriguing one. You certainly got some athletes really on both sides for these teams. Just some length, some size, some good guard play. First time for both these teams in a while, in a couple years, as far as making it to the state tournament. I don't know if that means anything. Like I said last week, some people kind of play up the experience of being there a little bit more than I would. Look at Bennett County last week; they had no experience and they won the state tournament. So I think you can throw that stuff out the window. But I think this is going to be a fun one to see how this plays out because again, you got so many athletes on both sides of the court and everything. So certainly a fun one.
Yeah, the St. Mary's team, like you said, led by seniors, but this group really doesn't have a ton of state tournament experience. I think both teams might have a little bit of jitters coming in. So I think the key to the game is who controls the game early on. And then, of course, Trevin Beckman is a huge X factor in this game. 25 points a game. He's electric, shooting right around that 40% mark from three. He's going to be one of the stars, I think, this weekend in Aberdeen.
Absolutely, and I think I mentioned it last week, and I'm a big believer in guard play. Having size is great. Don't get me wrong, but I just think when it comes to March, if you've got some guards, you're going to be set up for some success. And Beckman is one of the top guards in the state. You look at what he can do offensively and the way he can handle the ball. I think that's going to be key this week, not just for them, but for any team having some guard play. So certainly, Trevin will be a big factor in this one.
Excellent. Looking forward to seeing how that one plays out. And then the nightcap, we've got a rematch from very early in the season, Freeman and Viborg Hurley. And Freeman actually got the best of Viborg Hurley in the opener this year. And since then, Viborg Hurley has been playing very well under their new head coach, Shane Warwick. And I think they've kind of gotten things figured out. But this still could be an interesting game between two teams that know each other.
Yeah, I remember when that first game of the season happened, and people saw that score, and I think some people were surprised. But anybody that knows kind of Class B basketball knows that Freeman was really a young team, like a term we used earlier, maybe a year or two early. But here's Freeman back, here in the state tournament, first time in a while. So certainly a young team, and then they get to face a familiar opponent right off the bat. Like you said, they already beat Viborg, so that might kind of help them a little bit going into this game. A team they obviously know that they can already beat and everything. I don't know if we'll see how they handle the environment of playing at Waukesha Arena and everything. But yeah, Viborg really has obviously been on a tear since losing that first game as well.
David Walter, just a freshman, leading the Freeman Flyers and scoring 19 points per game. Yes, he's a freshman. So yeah, you're right, Ryan. A very young team led by some really good talent, and we'll see if they can come back. This Viborg Hurley team, obviously led by Nick Hansen. This guy has continued to get better and better each and every year, and this year doing the same thing, almost averaging 20 points a game, almost 10 boards a game. But they're surrounded with some really good athletes, and Viborg Hurley is really, one of those few teams that has beaten Castlewood, and I feel like they've done nothing but improve since day one. What do you think some of the keys to this game are, Ryan?
Kind of feels similar to that Castlewood Lyman game. Viborg has got Nick Hansen, a 6'7", 6'8" kid down low, and it feels like Freeman has just enough size where they can bother him. But I still think Nick is probably maybe could be the difference in this game. And kind of like you touched on earlier, Viborg Hurley, coming in with a new coach, Shane Warwick. Everybody knows what he's been able to accomplish, in the state of South Dakota with some of his workouts and everything. Just a great basketball mind. And I think as you've seen as the season has gone along, I think you've seen that Viborg has found their roles, and Shane has found a good way to put a lot of his players in the best ways to perform and everything. So, but yeah, this I think will be a fun one to end the first day.
Freeman's head coach Lance Friesen, he said we're going to have to adjust to their length, and he also mentioned Shane Warwick and some of the set plays they have are really tough to defend, and I think that's something we've seen the improvement with Viborg Hurley as the season's gone on, just comfort in that set offense, and they seem to be one of the favorites here overall in Class B. I mean, we don't have to make picks here, but like, who do you see as a team that's going to be really tough to beat?
All of them, no.
Yeah, exactly. They're all going to be tough to beat. You're
Yeah,
right.
it's going to be a fun tournament. The beats are always fun. I certainly think again you got to start at the top with those top three seeds, but there's always a team, that pick up a win that first day that we're not expecting, and then they get hot and might win the next day, and then they find themselves in the state championship. So, but I still think at the end of the day, I think it's going to be one of those top three teams that will come out on top at the state meets.
Going to be great. And you'll be there, I assume, right?
Absolutely. I never, anybody that knows me and follows me on social media knows that the bees are that's where I want to go. It's near and
Some
dear to my heart.
reverence. There's some reverence there. You got to make sure you make it for
Yeah.
sure.
So I'll be up there in Aberdeen.
I will be in Sioux Falls for the A's, and this is going to be a packed field as well. And last season, so much attention on the two Charger teams, Sioux Falls Christian and Hamlin, and they came back after last season's championship game with almost their full teams back, and they come back into this tournament as the 1 and 2 seeds. That's not a surprise. Is there anything that surprises you about this Class A field?
No, I think you kind of hit it on the head. I think with Class A, and certainly we'll talk about some other teams, and we certainly want to highlight them, but it just feels like Sioux Falls Christian and Hamlin, the rivalry that they have established the last couple of years has certainly been fun, and I think a good thing for Class A boys basketball. Everybody knows last year they played 3 times, and Hamlin won the one that mattered most in the state championship. They played again this year, another good game. Sioux Falls Christian was able to pull away at the end. Here we are again. They're on opposite sides of the bracket. So it feels like maybe they're in a collision course to play again for the state championship. But that's just motivation and fuel for these other teams that are going to be standing in their way. So I'm sure the other teams will watch this and might have bulletin board material as they say. But certainly going to be a fun one to see how it plays out in Sioux Falls.
Well, let's talk about that first game. Groton area takes on Sioux Falls Christian, and Sioux Falls Christian's not invincible. They lost that championship game last year. They lost one game in overtime this year to Western Christian, who is the #1 team in Iowa Class 2A. in overtime. And this year they come in knowing that they can be beat. I think that might give them a different attitude in this one, but they have been phenomenal this year, scoring 81 points per game. They are one of the most efficient offenses I've seen at any level of high school basketball, and they get their first game against a very young Groton team who did a great job to make it to state.
Yeah, it just feels like Sioux Falls Christian is just kind of on another level, hit another gear this season. Like you mentioned, that loss last year in the state championship, and just one loss this year to a very good Western Christian team out of Iowa. But you look at their team; they'll trot out a lineup that just it looks like a college lineup. I mean, with Griffin Goodberry, 6'10", 6'11", going to South Dakota State, and the other pieces around him are all 6'5", 6'4", and up and down the lineup. So they certainly looked apart. So it feels like they're certainly on a mission this weekend and everything.
Yeah, I think Brant Wassenaar has maybe improved more than any player in Class A. He has been a great supporting role player for Sioux Falls Christian in the past and has stepped up he is a young player, scoring about 15 a game for Sioux Falls Christian. It's going to be really tough to beat them, but Groton definitely has their hands full with a very young squad. They can make some shots from the outside though, and if Groton gets going from the outside, I think that's their only way to maybe hang with Sioux Falls Christian. And Sioux Falls Christian knows the key for them. They've been so good offensively, but they gotta lock down on defense when it gets to the state tournament and make sure Groton doesn't hit those big threes. That's what I'm looking for in this one.
Last year, Groton played Hamlin in the first round, and Groton gave Hamlin all they wanted.
Hmm.
It was like a 46-45 kind of a game. So don't count out Groton. They've kind of played this role before, being the underdog, and they almost pulled off a big upset last year against Hamlin. So anything can happen. So the Tigers, we'll see if they can throw a wrench into things in Sioux Falls.
Exactly. West Central takes on Lennox in game number 2. This is also a rematch of a game earlier in the year, in January 23rd. Lennox actually lost to West Central 47-42, a pretty low scoring, defensively minded game, and both teams pride themselves on a really good defense.
Yeah, DAC-12 teams, facing each other. Obviously very familiar with each other, like you said. And this one, just again, just athletes, really on both sides of the court. Some length, some athleticism, all those sorts of things. So this will be fun. Anytime teams are familiar with each other. I don't know if they prefer that or not. I don't know if they want to see somebody different. I guess this is the way it works sometimes. So that'll certainly add a wrinkle to this one, just the fact that these teams are so familiar with each other.
Yeah, both teams, great defensive teams. Just see a lot of pressure on both teams. Connor Mebius from West Central, to me, has been one of the breakout stars of Class A this year. Just a sophomore, and has been electric from beyond the three-point line. Another guy shooting around 40% from threes. And defensively, he's a captain of the team as a sophomore. And then they got a big guy as well. So that's one formula that not a lot of teams in Class A have, is a big guy like Will Call and a great guard in Connor Mebius. So I really like this West Central team. But Lennox, like you said, the familiarity might work out for this team, and they've got athletes up and down. I mean, Boston Katzer going to play football at Northern, Leighton Smith, another really good football player who does great on the basketball court. But then, Tate Gertis, a junior, is their leading scorer. They got a lot of just great all around athletes, and that helps them hang with any team on the board.
Yeah,
Let's
and
move.
then certainly,
Yeah.
Lennox won the state football championship. Don't know if that means anything at this point, but I think like it goes to show you, like you said, just the athletes that they have in their lineup and everything. So certainly will be an interesting one on Thursday for this one.
Third game of the day in Sioux Falls, Hamlin taking on Hill City, and this is new ground for Hill City, and they got on quite a roll. They're a different team, I think, than they were early in the season. Before we get into Hamlin, let's just talk about Hill City a little bit.
Yeah, certainly fun. Like we talked about earlier with Wall, it's always fun when a team, not expected to get to this point, they don't get a lot of attention from you and I, some of the people in the media. But here's Hill City, 19-4, playing some good basketball, and I think coming out of their region, that's a pretty solid region out there. Rapid City Christian is also in the state tournament. Custer, St. Thomas More. I mean, that was a pretty solid region. this year. So I think it shows what Hill City, what they're all about. So it'll be fun to see how it plays out for these guys this week.
Hamlin, of course, the defending champions, coming back with most of their lineup intact from last year, led by Easton Neuendorf, who's scoring about 17 a game, also one of their top distributors. They've got a great inside-outside match with Zach Van Meeteren and Evan Stormo, Jackson Wadsworth, a lot of guys that can do a lot of things. But when you talk to Todd Neuendorf, it's all about defense, and this is where they've separated themselves as one of the best defenses I've seen, at a Class A level.
Yeah, Hamlin is certainly a fun team to watch. Like you mentioned, Easton Neuendorf, he's just such an electric point guard, but he's got some pieces around him that they just complement each other so well with their size and their length. And they're the defending state champs. And I just think with what Sioux Falls Christian has done this season, I think what Hamlin did last year kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Easy to forget, yeah.
It does, yeah. And I know Todd Neuendorf well enough to know where he's gonna kind of use that as motivation with his crew and bulletin board material and all those cliche things. Obviously, got to get past the first one. I'm sure he obviously focus on Hill City, and then they'll worry about what comes after that if they were able to win. But Hamlin is certainly a team that is right there in the mix, and they're certainly a fun team to watch. And it'll be a fun one against Hill City the first game out.
The key to the game for me, Hamlin's got to stop Devin Bueller. And Devin Bueller, the leading scorer for Hill City, I think he's their ticket. If he gets hot, if he does something special, maybe they can hang a little bit. But for Hamlin, if they can stop the dribble penetration and find a way to get easy buckets for themselves, this one is probably theirs to win. Obviously, anything can happen, but Hamlin looking good in that one. The 3-6 matchup, the nightcap. An interesting one. Rapid City Christian, just their second time back to the state tournament in Class A. They've been in Class B before in the state tournament, but this is only the second time in Class A. It feels like they're becoming a regular, though, because they've just continued to improve this program, and they go against we talked about young teams, but another very young team in Clark Willow Lake.
Yeah, another intriguing matchup. Guard play, as everybody knows, how I feel about guard play is key. And certainly, Rapid City Christian has some dynamic guards that they can just come at you in waves. I mean, there's just some great ball handlers, some great shooters. But then the other side, Clark Willow Lake has got some size and some length. So I think it's kind of a difference there as far as their strengths for both of these teams. So we'll kind of have to see who wins out. Will it be more of the guard play on Rapid City Christian, or will it be kind of the bigs for Clark Willow Lake? So certainly this will be an intriguing matchup.
Yeah, you nailed it. That's the key to the game for me too. And both coaches said the same thing. Jerome Neschheim of Clark Willow Lake knows they've got the front line, and he doesn't want to get sped up. And then Kyle Courtney of Rapid City Christian said the exact opposite. We've got to keep things moving, keep it as sped up as possible, because that's our game. It's going to be a lot of fun because you've got tons of stars on both sides, budding stars for Clark Willow Lake, led by, their 4 top scorers. 3 of them are freshmen or sophomores. And then you had a junior in that mix as well with Emerson Larson. So it's like a preview of state tournament teams to come for Clark Willow Lake. And Rapid City Christian, they've been previewing that for the last couple of years. And now, they're ready to do some business and do some damage here in this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like, Rapid City Christian had a quality team the last couple of years. They picked up a big win last year in the first round, beating Sioux Valley. Obviously, they want to try to do that again, and then you get to the semifinals, and then you never know what can happen from there. But yeah, Clark, talk about those guys. They're a young, up-and-coming team. So it'll be fun to see some veterans and some youth kind of going against each other in this one.
Ever since this season started, so many people have said this is Sioux Falls Christian and Hamlin's class. We've got to the end of the season. I haven't seen anything that makes me think otherwise. Is that what it feels like Saturday night looks like to you too, Ryan?
Yeah, it feels like it as well to me. If you even look ahead at maybe what we could see in the finals, potentially, Hamlin has beaten both Clark Willow Lake and Rapid City Christian. And Sioux Falls Christian has already beaten Lennox and West Central. So it just feels like it is going to be a Charger versus Charger matchup. But again, upsets happen.
That's why we play the games. Yep.
Why we play the game. So, but it feels like that's what we're going to have on Saturday night. But anything can happen in March.
There's a little look at what's happening in Sioux Falls. Let's move out west now as we move to Summit Arena at the Monument, where the Double A tournament will take place. And again, coming into this season, a lot of people thought this was Mitchell's to take. The defending champs returned their two best scorers, but you know, the supporting cast offensively hasn't been as good as they were hoping, and they come into the state tournament as the 4 seed, and it's Lincoln, the Sioux Falls Lincoln Patriots, who didn't make the state tournament last year, who have cruised in with a 20-1 record and are the number 1 seed. Just your overall thoughts on a Double A field that looks, at the beginning of the year looked pretty even, and now it looks like Lincoln kind of sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, Lincoln has certainly separated themselves a little bit from the pack, but we should also mention, their only loss this season was to Mitchell, a team that they could potentially play in the semifinals. But we got to see how Thursday plays out before we get to that point. But everybody kind of knows how I feel about Double A. Just 20 teams, so in that class. So obviously these teams are so familiar with each other. These teams, the coaches will scout their opponents so well because it's not going to be the first time, more than likely, that they've played this season, obviously. So certainly I think whenever you talk about this tournament, Sioux Falls Lincoln is probably the team to beat in most people's eyes. But like I always say in Double A, you kind of throw seeds and records out the window because these teams just know each other so well.
Well, let's talk about that first game. The 1-8 matchup, Spearfish with a 14-7 record earned a spot into the state tournament, and they did it dramatically with a big comeback against T Area, finding their way to state. That was huge for Coach Ben Schultz and the Spartans. But now they run into a Lincoln team that is not only the top scoring team in the state, they're the top defensive team in the state as well. And that's something Luke Hanneman really wants to hang his hat on, is that we are going 120% on defense as well, and they've got a lot of athletes to do it.
You said it right there with athletes. You look at Lincoln's lineup, just some athletes, some good guards, some nice wings. Really just feels like a nice complement of players, up and down their lineup. But Spearfish, they had a nice football run. We talked about those guys during the fall, during the football season, and obviously some of those guys are playing, basketball and everything as well. So yeah, I think you definitely hit it on the head there with some athletes. People are probably going to automatically pick Lincoln because it's the 1 versus 8. But again, when you get to this point and you get to Double A basketball, I just don't know if nothing's a given. So this will be a fun one.
One more thing I want to add about Lincoln. We talked about the athletes, but their bench can produce more points than a lot of benches. And when you play 3 games in 3 days, guys like DeAndre Painter are going to be huge in this tournament, who can come off the bench and give you 12, 15 points if needed. So look for the bench scoring for Lincoln to be huge in these 3 days. But yeah, that's our first matchup of the day, and it's always dangerous when you get a team, especially a Lincoln team, who just has a handful of seniors. So not a ton of guys to go to on the senior front to rely on. That 4-5 matchup, we don't get many rivalries as good as this one. Huron and Mitchell. This one goes way back, and these two teams, it's been weighted toward Mitchell recently until this last meeting when Huron got the win.
Yeah, and I was at that game. That was just a low scoring, grinded out. It just felt like an old throwback ESD kind of a game. I know we got a shot clock nowadays, but those teams in that game, it was just a low scoring game. So we'll see if we're going to have a similar type of a game this time around. But this one certainly got some good athletes and some length, some all-state type players, some future college basketball players. So this is certainly intriguing just because of they know each other so well and the history and the rivalry. So certainly going to be a fun one here in this matchup.
Yeah, you're looking for basketball stars. You're going to find them in this game. Colton Smith, Blake Elwine, Anderson Porsche, a lot of guys who can get it done. Key for Team Budenhagen when we talked to him was really making an effort to punch the ball inside and really take advantage of some hopefully some mismatches. And they're going to have to limit paint touches. They know that was one of the reasons that they did so well early, is limiting the paint touches and really making them play from the outside. For Mitchell, Riker Kreutzfeldt, he talks about getting his team to defend above average and then really holding down the star in this one in Blake Elwine and making sure he doesn't score over his average. So those are 2 key points to watch in this game for sure. The 3-6 matchup, a couple of familiar teams. Brandon Valley comes in 18-3, and they take on Jefferson. And Jefferson's Tim Reck has been the only boys coach at Jefferson. He used to be Craig Nelson's assistant at Washington years ago. So these two know each other very well.
Yeah, like we said in Double A, you're always going to see that type of stuff, the familiarity amongst the coaches and the players, and certainly going to be that's the case with this one. Brandon Valley, like we talk about with a lot of these teams, just some good athletes. Landon Delaney, obviously a football player that's going to go play football at South Dakota State, but he's an all-state player on the basketball court too. So certainly shows what he's capable of doing as on the basketball court and everything. So again, another familiar matchup in this one.
I have to correct myself. That's the 2-10 matchup, not the 3-6 matchup. The 10 seed Jefferson got the only upset in the round of 16, and they take on a really good Brandon team. So the 3-6 matchup is actually the last game. Harrisburg taking on O'Gorman, and again, we talked about it. Two teams that know each other well. This O'Gorman team, has scored at a high level. Their defense has not stepped up to their normal level, and this Harrisburg team is probably the most balanced team in Double A. They literally have 5 guys that could lead them in scoring almost every night.
Yeah, this will be another interesting one. This feels like kind of repeating ourselves here, but just a lot of athletes, a lot of size on the court for this one. So certainly going to be fun to see how this one plays out.
Harrisburg's a team that can make shots, and they're a team we haven't talked about a lot, but this is a team, if they're making shots, I think they can play with anybody. They've shown, they can beat Mitchell. They can beat some good teams around the state. They're going to have quite a challenge here. Brandon Valley is a team that got that first loss of the year to Jefferson and then won 13 games in a row after that, so they can be a really hot team. Lincoln can be a hot team. This again, a lot of people are just going to give this to Lincoln, but I think it's going to be a real toss-up.
Absolutely. We talked about Mitchell, kind of feels like similar last year with Hamlin. Mitchell, the defending state champs. Obviously, they took some losses, but it feels like maybe they're kind of getting overshadowed by maybe Lincoln and some of the other teams. And Colonels might be using that as motivation bulletin board type material as well. But I think in this one, in the state tournament, Lincoln is certainly the team, maybe the favorite going into it in most people's eyes. But again, that doesn't guarantee anything. And the Double A tournament to me is always fun because you have so many good athletes and they know each other so well. So there's going to be some games that might throw some people off, but I anticipate this one being another fun tournament.
We did it. We got through the 3 tournaments. Ryan, it's been so much fun talking hoops with you for the last couple of weeks on Inside the 605. Looking forward to seeing how this thing all ends up, and make sure to stay tuned to Ryan Deal for all the postseason awards, all the wrap-ups from all across the state. And also you can make your picks on 605sports.com.
Yep, correct. Last week we did our girls basketball pick'em challenge. I believe later on today that'll be posted so people can go on there and make their boys basketball picks. I went 1-3 last week for the girls. I only picked one state champion. So I'm really not too confident in my picking abilities for the boys.
You never know. You can always get some redemption. Here we go. Well, again, thank you, Ryan, for being with us, and thank you, the viewer, for being with us all season long. This has been a lot of fun through football, through basketball. We made it through another sports season, and appreciate you guys tuning in and telling your friends about it as well as this show continues to grow. For Ryan Deal, I'm Jason Andera. We'll see you next time.